Hi, everyone. This week we're going to be shifting our focus from the sun salutations in yoga to moon salutations in yoga. And as you can see from the cartoon yogi on the video or on the presentation, she is in what is called half moon pose. And half moon pose is one of the many postures that you're going to be introduced to with the moon salutation. So let's talk a little bit about what a moon salutation is. So we've learned about sun salutation, Surya Namaskara, which is a sun greeting. And thousands of years ago, yogis would face the sun with their shadows directly behind them, and they would salute the sun each morning. And this series of postures would build energy, build flexibility, build strength, and essentially get the person ready for the day. It was also part of a religious rite where the yogi would be worshiping the sun and essentially thanking the sun for coming back and bringing life and energy to the earth. So let's talk about the moon salutation. First of all, the moon salutation is known as Chandra Namaskara, which means moon greeting. And traditionally, it was performed in the evening. It prepares the body for sleep and relaxation. It's a little less powerful in terms of the effects of cardio on the body, but it can be just as intense. There are more stretchy postures in a moon salutation versus a sun salutation. The moon salutation also incorporates more hip and hamstring stretching, and it's known as the yin flow of yoga. So it's the more, I have to be very careful these days, but it's what we might consider the feminine side of yoga. And we'll talk a little bit more about how that came to be in just a few minutes. But everybody needs to do both sun salutations and moon salutations to balance out the physical aspects of asana. And there are many variations of moon salutations. If you Google it, you will find that there's more than one way to practice the moon salutation. All right, this cartoon figure over here is in another half moon pose. So there are two half moon postures in yoga. The first one is standing half moon, and this is balancing half moon. All right, so the first pose is half moon pose. This pose is called, I'm getting a blank here for some reason. Ardha Chandrasana. I'm sorry, I had to think for a second. Ardha Chandrasana. So Ardha means half, Chandrasana means moon pose. And like I said, there are two postures known as half moon. So for this one, for mountain pose, you're going to inhale to extend into mountain or extended mountain. And then you're going to exhale, bend to the right. It's a lateral stretch of the spine. It's also going to wake up those obliques. And during the stretch, you're going to continue to press all four corners of both feet into the mat and spiral your chest toward the sky, attempting to stack one shoulder atop the other. So that's how the half moon posture is done. And then you repeat it on the opposite side. So notice that one foot's not taking more weight than the other. The next posture, let me make sure I've got the right one. So the next posture is called horse stance or wide squat. You may know this as a plie squat if you're a dancer. And from extended mountain, you're going to step wide. You're going to make sure your knee is over your ankle. You never want that knee to jut out over those toes. And you're going to press into the four corners of both feet. And just like with any other posture, your knees and toes are going in the same direction. So make sure that you pay attention to that. Be mindful of where your knees are in relation to your toes, because your toes and knees should always be facing the same direction. You want to make sure, like I said, that you're wide enough so your knees don't extend over your toes, as it protects your knees. And on an exhale, you're going to lower into that wide squat. Perhaps hold for 5 calm breaths. You can also do a dynamic series with this posture, inhaling into star pose as you straighten your legs, and then exhaling into the plie squat. Inhale up and exhale. So you can hold it in a static position, or you can include a dynamic movement with it. The next posture is wide-legged forward fold, and this is one that we haven't talked about as of yet. This is one of my favorite postures. So from a horse stance, you're going to step even wider, if comfortable. This time your toes and knees are going to point forward, or you could possibly slightly pigeon toe them inward. You're going to keep your knees soft to make sure you don't lock them. And on an exhale, you're going to hinge from the hips and essentially fold forward. So you're going into a forward fold. You're simply wide-legged in this case. You can use a yoga block to rest your hands on it if needed. And you're going to allow your upper body and head to hang heavily and relax. Perhaps thinking of your body and your torso, your head as a weight that's helping you deepen that stretch. You can reach out and grab your ankles. You can grab your calves. You can use blocks. There are so many different ways to do this pose. And if you're comfortable, you can step wider as you become more accustomed to the posture. Triangle pose. We've already been over triangle pose. So there's not a lot to tell you with this one that we haven't already been over. From wide-legged forward fold, you're going to start by turning your right foot toward the top of the mat, and you're going to keep your left foot where it is. Your toes and knees are in the same direction. Notice that this yogi's toes are going forward, same direction as the knees. This yogi's foot is turned slightly inward. You can have it more at a right angle if you would like to. And step, you're still wide. You can actually stay in the same position that you were in terms of your feet, the distance of your feet. From a standing position, you're going to extend your arms parallel to the floor with your palms down. Reach your right arm forward until you feel that stretch in the upper inner thigh. And then on the exhale, place the front hand on a block, on your shin, or on the floor. The important thing is to keep those shoulders stacked. If this top shoulder starts to turn towards the floor or turn inward, you're going to use a block or use your shin. Your gaze can be upward. I don't like to use an upward gaze with triangle. It hurts my neck. So I gaze toward the wall in front of me. And you're going to pull the crown of your head forward as you hold the posture. So that'll get the stretch a little deeper. Pyramid pose is a great posture to practice. We've already talked about pyramid pose. It's the next pose in the series. It's a great hamstring stretch. From triangle pose, you're going to walk the back foot in, and your hips are now going to be hip width apart. You're going to be facing the front of your mat. So you're moving from an external rotation of the hips in triangle to an internal rotation of the hips in pyramid pose. So your stance is not quite as wide. Your back foot and knee are going to point outward toward the top corner of your mat. So these toes are going to point inward, perhaps at maybe a 45-degree angle toward the top of the mat, if the top of the mat were up here. The front foot and knee face the front of the mat. And on an inhale, you're going to extend your arms and overhead and reach out, hinging forward from the hips. And what's going to happen is you're going to feel a nice stretch in the hamstring of that front leg. You're going to keep your knees soft and then exhale into a forward fold, resting your hands on a block if you need to. And you're going to relax your head, neck, and upper body. Now, in this pose, this yogi, the cartoon yogi, is touching her leg with her torso. That is not necessarily going to happen with everyone. So don't force yourself into a deep stretch here because you could tear your hamstring. The next pose is called low side lunge. That's a terrible graphic. It's blurry. With this posture, you're going to avoid it if you have a knee issue. So notice how that knee is in such a deep hinge, and you're also putting a lot of pressure on that knee because you're balancing on the toes. So you're going to be careful with this posture. If you have knee problems, you're going to skip it altogether. From pyramid pose, you're going to bend your right knee and deeply and lift your right heel so that you're on the right toes, like the yogis are doing here. Extend your left leg outward and straight as these yogis are demonstrating. Flex your left foot. They are not doing that, but in the instructional video that you'll practice this week, I will make sure to show you that. You can rest your hands on the floor of the block. They've got their hands in Anjali Mudra. You can use that if you're strong enough to do so, but that's not the goal right now. Placing the hands on the floor or a block is probably where everyone needs to start until you're more comfortable and build some strength. You can lean forward slightly to get a deeper inner thigh stretch, which is a great stretch. And like I said, if you have knee issues, you're going to avoid this pose. And you can use prayer hands or Anjali Mudra for more intensity. Low yoga squat, Malasana. So from your low side squat, you're going to bend both knees. You're going to make sure your feet are wide enough to completely connect to the floor. So you want those four corners of both of your feet touching the mat and taking equal weight among the four corners. Everyone is different. Don't compare a distance between your feet to another person in class and think that you are doing it wrong. Some people can bring these 2 feet very close together and still succeed in pressing them into the floor completely. I cannot do that. I'm more like this yogi with the little tiny head here, and I require a wider stance. Squat as low as you can. Some days you're going to be a little more flexible than others. Don't force yourself to go any deeper than is comfortable. You can place your hands on the floor or a block. And for a challenge, you can bring your hands to prayer hands. So there are a couple of different variations for the low yoga squat. Then you're going to repeat all the postures on the other side in reverse order. The half moon balance pose I will introduce this week. It is an advanced posture, so some of you are going to struggle with it. Some of you might be able to do it the first time. Don't judge your ability to do half moon pose. Just notice what you are doing and continue to practice. As you practice, the posture will become a little more accessible. It's a fun pose to try. And like I said, it's very challenging. And from extended, I'm standing forward fold, you're going to extend your left leg to the sky to start, and you're going to balance on your right foot. So you come into what's called a standing split. From here, you'll place your right hand on the floor or a block and your left hand on your left hip. On an inhale, you'll stack your left shoulder over the right and the left hip over the right so that your torso and left leg are facing the left side of the room. And if you're balanced, you can extend your left hand to the sky, and then you'll repeat on the other side. Now, one thing I want you to notice here is the half moon shape of the yogi. So if we start at this lifted foot and arc through the lifted hand, down through the crown of the head, through the bottom hand into the balancing foot, the yogi is essentially in a half moon shape. So that's why this pose is called half moon. Similarly, so is this one. Notice how she, from the tips of the fingers all the way down to the feet, is in the shape of a half moon. And I need to make a correction. This pose right here is actually called Chapasana, which is a variation. Actually, it's a whole different pose than balancing half moon. It's essentially adding that back bend with the half moon pose, so Chapasana. So I've included links to moon salutation videos and articles in the slide presentation for the week, so please look through those and read a little bit more about them. And I hope you enjoy our practice of the moon salutation this week.